to Warp Zone, a podcast on sci-fi, philosophy, religion, politics, gaming, and anything else to do.
Taboo!
Hey, holy moly, there's someone else in the room. We are sitting in a small room in Fisher Library. I am Ben Banasik.
I'm Tara Smith.
I'm Gerry Smith.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
We're not related, just in case.
Yeah, don't just assume because all Smiths, there's a lot of us that we're all related.
There was this weird time where I'd go home and would tell Jodie about, the university, and then would say you guys, and then Adam as well, and you're all Smiths. And she thought I possibly was just making you all up. One, I'm hanging around with people, and two, you're all Smiths.
Yeah, the bad thing is that when you say suddenly you're not related, it's like you're kind of making it more into a thing. So, because I work with Gerry Smith, who is actually related to Gerry Smith.
Yeah.
So we work in ophthalmology.
Is that a Geraldine Smith, or is that a Jerry as in J-E-R-R-Y?
Gerry is in Geraldine. Our Gerry.
But you work with...
I work with cousin, Jeremy.
Oh, Jeremy Smith.
Tara
Smith,
works for my dad's cousin.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, the point being that he is a Smith as well.
Yeah.
So what happens is people they assume you're related, but so now I kind of sometimes go, oh, well, we're not related, and then it sounds like I'm making a big thing of saying that, you're be embarrassed to be related.
Yeah.
It's like,
I'm not related.
Oh, we're not related. So it's kind of makes it worse. So anyway, the Smiths are here.
Yeah.
Yes. We are recording this special podcast episode. We're not sure when this is going to be released, so it is the something of something.
Yeah, it could be coming for you from any time, any place, anywhere. It's just in the infinite universe.
Yeah. Mm.
So, with our Bant section, TM, what is your earliest childhood memory?
Mine is when I was in kindergarten. I was playing a game where everybody was in a circle, and somehow I got out, and the place where we had to be, the out section was the naughty corner. It happened to be the same section, and I don't like getting into trouble, so I thought I was being put in the naughty section, and I cried. One of my earliest memories. That gives you a taste of kind of my goody two-shoe-ness, so that's one of my earliest memories.
Wow. Yeah, I've cried from being put in a naughty spot, because I was such a gold child.
Same.
Yeah. So my earliest childhood memory is a bit of a weird story and I don't know if it's actually a memory. So,
all right.
So I have this memory of a Chinese woman staying at my house with my family.
Okay.
And I think she must have been a work colleague of my dad's, and I have these memories of her sleeping in the lounge room, and of her taking a picture of us before she left. And I brought this up to my parents, and they have no idea what I'm talking about.
That's so weird.
They're like, no, we've never had
a
Chinese woman stay in our house. And I was like, any colleagues staying? No.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
It's not actually a real memory. Wow.
I think it's a real memory.
Maybe she's she came in and kidnapped, or was going to kidnap you. Maybe it was a false kidnapping. Oh, I've got another memory after your memory and your memory. I've got another one.
But the other weird thing is that I found a photograph, not of her, but taken by her. And I knew that photograph was that memory.
Wow.
Oh, right.
Because I just remember standing there, her taking the picture.
Maybe your family's from the Bizarro universe.
Oh, yeah.
You should ask them.
Mandela effect,
Mandela effect,
Yeah.
Ask them what happened to Nelson Mandela. Or
you know how this was...
Berenstein or Berenstein.
Not that we can put this in a time, but a long time ago, or some time ago, we did a podcast on... Tom said it's like the Bernstein effect. Oh, about Orson H.G. Wells.
Yeah, I was thinking
that we all think of War of the Worlds, that radio recording. We all have different memories, so you thought that could be a cool parallel universe thing. Yeah. Anyway,
actual panic.
Memory.
Probably of my grandfather taking me to the markets. He'd buy me a balloon, and I'd always let the balloon go, and would always cry about the balloon going.
It's funny, so we both have crying.
So, I just remember the balloon. I don't remember being upset.
You litterer. That's so bad for the environment.
I want my dolphin choking straws, actually. On straws.
Yeah.
Paper straws are shit.
Yeah,
They're
they are
terrible.
pretty shit. And you know, some people that the metal ones have inhaled them.
Yeah,
They've
yeah.
kind of like impaled themselves with it. They've sucked too
But
hard.
you can get... So Boost Juice have like a thicker cardboard straw.
Oh, yeah.
They're good.
Yeah.
They're not the pieces of garbage that you have like just paper.
The paper ones are pretty bad.
They're
You get about like 5 or 10 good sips and then it starts to disintegrate.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't. That's not sustainable.
Yeah.
That's not. That's. I have my iced coffee there throughout the entire lecture. That's 2 hours.
Yeah, another memory I have, this one's quite funny. But you know how sometimes you don't know if it's just your mum retelling you the story that's how you remember it?
Yeah.
But anyway, when I was really little, I was at a doof, so my mum would go to a lot of doofs and I would just hang out with people near the speakers and stuff. That was my early hippie childhood. She said one day she couldn't find me anywhere and she panicked and she was running around looking for me, and she went out to a car park and there was this tall woman carrying me away towards the car park, and she was like, hey, what are you doing? That's like my child, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I was just trying to find you. And but like she'd walked like 10 minutes towards the car park, and she was like, oh, thanks for that, and like grabbed me and like walked away, but she thinks that they were trying to kidnap me. So I don't know if I remember that though, or whether I just remembered the
It's really
story.
weird if that was your actual mother. So that your new mother, your current mother, is actually the one that did the taking.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this happened, just in case you actually remember it.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, but you kind of look similar to your mum.
we do.
You
look
do,
a bit
yeah.
Yeah, so that theory's...
similar.
There's no theory. But
Just throwing out conjecture about your parents.
Yeah, so this is our first podcast of having somebody else that's not you and me.
Yeah, because we had the Walter Day thing, but that was more of a
different
pre-recorded
Yeah.
interview thing.
So we're going to feature a few of our friends who are academics.
If this is successful.
If it's successful.
If
it
this is
doesn't,
not successful.
you'll
So if I don't perform well today, that's it for everyone
well,
else.
this episode just won't go out. Yeah.
So
No pressure.
You should feel very privileged that you're the first.
I do feel privileged.
No.
I feel like I'm within a famous place right now. You
Yeah.
know? This is going to go down in history.
So our 20 listeners are going to be very excited.
if there's any listeners that live in Tasmania,
Oh,
shout out to my Tasmanian brothers and sisters.
Which you're related to, right? All right.
All right. Well, I think we'll play a little bit of a song from the Jesus Christians, and then we can talk about your honours thesis, your PhD topic, where you are now, and
But not literally where you are now.
Right.
We don't want to know like spatially where you are.
Well, we do.
Well, we do,
That's
but
what I
it
meant.
can't be like contextual to
Okay.
it.
Yeah. Can I talk about how I'm like where I am emotionally?
Yeah.
Philologically and philosophically.
Yeah.
All right. So enjoy this recording of the Jesus Christians playing "Love Is My Philosophy." Is that the name?
When
of it?
love becomes your philosophy.
When love becomes your philosophy. All right. Enjoy.
Deep down in every one of us, we hope for a world where justice, truth, and kindness prevail. Well, we can work towards it right now if we let love be our motivation for everything that we do.
When love becomes our philosophy, there'll be an end to dishonesty. Everyone will speak truth with their neighbor. When love becomes our philosophy, there'll be an end to hypocrisy. Our love will shine through our behavior. When love becomes our philosophy, becomes our philosophy, becomes our philosophy. Picture a world when all children are starving, 'cause everybody shares their bread. Picture a world without any money, where people work for love instead. You and I, we can make it happen if we make today become the day when love becomes our philosophy. There'll be an end to dishonesty. Everyone will speak truth with their neighbor. When
So, that was the Jesus Christians recording where?
In Kenya.
Mm.
They had a compound there for a while, and they produced a film called More Than Just a Band.
Okay.
And they ended up using that as distributing material. It's a great film. They produced a lot of music.
Mm.
Yeah.
They're an interesting group. Just as an introduction about you, Geraldine Smith.
Sure.
Jerry Smith. Do you go by, when you actually like have articles out there, is it Jerry Smith or Geraldine Smith?
Geraldine. The formal name.
The formal yes.
Only my friends can call me Jerry.
Sister of Bernadette and...
Francis and Angela.
Such a Catholic upbringing.
Yeah,
yes.
Pretty much. So, who am I? Well, currently I'm doing a PhD at the University of Tasmania on the interfaith movement, which, if you don't know what that is, it's basically a peace movement where people from different religions will form organisations, or they'll support initiatives that's about interreligious dialogue and social action. And they do lots of different things, like they might lobby the government together on environmental issues, or just be generally about promoting social cohesion and pluralism. So it does a lot of stuff, but it's mostly these organisations.
So interfaith in that regard is not defined as what Vatican II tries to do in setting up interfaith dialogue with Christian churches, but it's more outside of the Christian corpus, yeah?
Yeah, it's not just Christianity.
Yeah, because there's a lot of moves, I think, for like Micah, Australia, and then Vatican II moves, and then Orthodoxy have these joint ventures with different bishops or heads of different churches coming together and praying for different things. But this is explicitly lots of different faiths, yeah?
Yeah, pretty much.
But you have noticed that sometimes a little bit of like stigma, right? Like not always everybody gets invited to the table. Have you noticed a little bit of that?
No, I think they're pretty good. Like, they don't just focus on Christians. I think interfaith now, it's not just Christianity, it's really big with a lot of religions, like Hinduism, Baha'ism, spiritualities, Islam. Like, it's a lot more diverse. I think what they avoid talking about or avoid is difficult issues. So they don't like talking about things related to LGBT issues or sexual ethics, because that's where there's really severe division. So they're trying to figure out how to do that, but I think that's hard. It's really exclusive.
So I don't want to put it this way, but the lowest common denominator aspects of it. So there is this interaction on areas where you can disagree with, but they're not tackling the issues of difference.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah.
I think maybe in some circles they end up being able to do that, but in the mainstream they are critiqued a lot of the time for not dealing with actual difference. Because there's a whole precedent with the movement where it began on this idea that all the religions are just these fragments of light that have broken apart, and that soon they will all come together back into Christianity. So it started from this really Christian perspective, and that's kind of travelled through the movement where there's this narrative about commonality. You know, every religion has the golden rule, or every religion has a common experience, or the same, is the same when you get down to it.
Like we're united more by what we share than how we're different kind of attitude.
And I think that narrative is good, and that it's a useful narrative, but it doesn't deal with difference. It doesn't give us a way of dealing with, but what do we do in a religiously plural society where we actually have to decide what we're going to do about... so recently there's the Ruddock Review that was about just if it's okay for religious schools to discriminate particular people on their sexuality.
Yep.
And that's something that we need to talk about it, and that's going to cause division. We can't just talk about, but we're all the same.
Of course.
It's limited.
I think, that's an interesting review, and that there's obviously some politics behind it, but some of the schools, which I personally know as to why they signed that letter to Ruddock, they're not welcoming of any difference at all. And it's interesting that they're not generally schools from a Catholic background, nor are they Islamic schools. You know, it is Anglican schools that are actually pushing for this, which is a really interesting move, I think, coming from the Protestant movement, which is all about freedom of expression generally, and moving away from church hierarchy, is now becoming more dogmatized. It's a very interesting move.
Yeah.
So what else about you, Jerry? So you're doing a PhD.
So I'm very interested in religion, as you might have guessed. So I know Tara and Ben because we met each other within the religious studies department at the University of Sydney. Previously, I did my honours thesis on a group called the Jesus Christians, and that really, I guess, inspired me to... I was already interested in religion, but I was kind of more interested when I got to do this project, and I ended up spending a lot of time with the Jesus Christians and doing field work with them, and I developed quite a good relationship with them. And that was really interesting because a lot of people were really uncomfortable with my relationship with them, or they were just a bit worried, like, oh, are you sure you should be hanging out with them? You know, they are a cult after all. And there's this whole issue where they've been identified as a cult and have been accused of kidnapping people, and which have all been proven false. And they've done a lot of stuff that have just created heaps of media controversy. And so going into that, there was a lot of unease in my family and friends.
Yeah. Do you want to do an intro of who the Jesus Christians are for people that don't know who they are?
So the Jesus Christians are a radical Christian group. There probably less than 100 of them exist in the world. They're spread around Australia, the UK, the US, South America, Europe, and they're quite distinct in their view of the Bible. So the way that they would describe it is that, unlike other churches, we are actually following the teachings of Jesus. So that's what they would say. And what that produces is a particular lifestyle. So if you join the community, you have to forsake all. So that means giving up all of your money, all of your possessions, your career, the job that you're at, pretty much everything. And you go and you live in the community like 24/7. And they don't believe in working for money, because that's working for mammon, for the devil, or, you know, that for greed. And so they believe that you should be working for God. And so they forsake all of their worldly stuff. And then they live by faith. So they rely on donations from the public. So they go out distributing pamphlets that they've produced or DVDs, and they ask for a small donation. And that's how they generally, are able to buy really basic things.
How do they get the DVDs produced?
I don't know.
So
they ask someone to do it. Like, they don't do it themselves. So they still have to use money.
Yeah.
They can't really escape it completely. But they try and live as simply as they can.
Because they have a bus, yeah?
Yeah. So a lot of them live in motorhomes and camper caravans. And obviously you have to buy petrol. You can't get it in any other way.
And you have to be registered. You have to have a license.
Exactly. So there's all these things, like, so people are like, yeah, but they don't work just for God, they're earning money from distributing and they have to use money. And it's like, yeah, I know, but...
So it's more like they do the best they can, and they're working towards doing as much as they can.
Yeah. Yeah, and they believe that eventually they won't be able to use money at all because of the move to the cashless society. And that, for them, the cashless society is basically the heralding of the end. So they think that eventually we're all going to get microchips in our hands, and that's going to be used for buying and selling and for various other things.
And that's the mark of the beast.
Yeah, that's the mark of the beast. So if you get the mark of the beast, like, oh, I'm sorry, like, you've chosen the devil. Like, you can't go to heaven, basically.
Why is that though? It seems like a weird place to put like you're kind of the devil in. Like when you do the end time, another sort of signal. Like what's so important about the microchip or the payless society, cashless society?
There's a lot of stuff in Book of Revelations that they point to about the mark of the beast will be known or be related to buying and selling.
Okay.
But this is a misreading of Emperor Nero. So Revelations being about an Emperor Nero. And then there's, numbers which are actually applied to Book of Revelation, and then they look at barcodes, and barcodes have 2 lines at the beginning and in the center, and those 2 really thin singular lines match very closely what the number 6 is in the barcode, and they'll go, oh, okay, that means it's 666. Actually, they're divisionary lines. So this is an old, very old Christian theory that, barcodes are actually the mark of the beast.
Right, okay.
They've taken, like as much as I know, like they've taken an element of that and then applied it to actually the microchip, and that's now the barcode. So I quite like the innovations that the Jesus Christians do. Like, I don't personally like them, as in, yes, I'm going to take these on and as part of my life, but I can see the theological sources for a lot of their theories, and then the flipping of the narratives, which I find really interesting from the the years that we've spoken about their views and beliefs.
Yeah, a very interesting group. And like I said, so one thing that they've done that's really drawn a lot of cult attention is that they donated their kidneys. So not everyone did, but a lot of members have donated a kidney to a stranger completely altruistically without any exchange of money or anything. And
donated actually medically, not just taking the kidney out and here you go. This is for you.
And to the hospital, and they've had a surgeon. And,
yes. So it's been done properly, but they've lied to get it done, yeah?
Yes, in Australia they had to lie. They had to say that they knew the person that they're donating to.
Yeah.
But that law has changed in New South Wales because of the Jesus Christians.
So now you don't have to know anyone.
Yeah, you can do unrelated kidney donations. In Victoria, I think the Jesus Christians got banned from donating kidneys. So, you win some, you win some, right? And so John Ronson did a documentary about them. It's called Kidneys for Jesus, if you want to check it out.
Was that quite a while ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've seen it. That's the one with the basketball and they show them flagellating, or is that a different documentary?
No, that was a Fox News report.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of media that...
Yeah.
That was loud. Sorry, I'm drinking a drink.
A carbonated one.
Yeah, it has to be
still
carbonated. Couldn't just drink still water.
Not like my boss.
Do you want to tell Jerry your story about how you got interested in the Jesus Christians in the first place? 'Cause that's quite an interesting story.
So I went out one day because I wanted to buy some reading glasses because it was coming up to my honours year, and I thought that people that wear glasses look smarter. So
did you need glasses?
I thought I did, but I didn't actually really need them.
No, because I know a good ophthalmologist.
So I went out and I met one of the Jesus Christians on the street distributing. And so I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And I started asking him all these questions. And he gave me a book, and I went and got my glasses, which I didn't need, and came out, and he was there again. I was like, oh, can I just ask you a few more questions? And he's like, oh yeah, give me your email and I'll email you later. So I was emailing them for a while just out of interest. And then I was telling Christopher Hartney, who's the Dr. Christopher Hartney at UCID here, about meeting this person. And he said, oh yeah, I know the leaders of the JCs, Dave and Sherry McKay. I can set up a meeting and we could ask if we could do this for your honours project. So I was like, oh, okay, great. Pretty cool coincidence. So I met them here at UCID, and we explained, what the project would be and all of that. And then, they allowed me to, interact with them, and they invited me out to lunch on their buses, and I slowly got to know each member, and eventually I got to a point where they let me go on a faith outreach. And this is something that they do every few years, where they leave everything at home, everything in their motorhomes, and they go out onto the street on foot, and they take very little. They don't take any money, and they spend a period of a few days or weeks just relying on the provisions given by God. So they'll go out and they'll eat by maybe finding food somewhere, or someone might give it to them.
Bin diving there.
Yeah, or sometimes they say that they're not allowed to bin dive.
Oh.
To kind of, like, you can have like an easier outreach, or you can have a really hard one. So there's like levels of difficulty that you can do. We weren't allowed. We decided that we wouldn't bin raid. But we had distributing material, so usually they won't take things to distribute, but we took. So we had something to trade and go up to people and be like, we're not asking for donations of money, but if you would like to donate food, then that would be good. So we got a lot of great food from that. It was amazing. People would meet us, and then they would go into the supermarket that we were standing beside strategically, and they would come out and they'd give us like bread and we once got like a whole barbecue chicken. And they were really generous. Like, people...
Did you feel awkward asking, though? Like, essentially scabbing?
No. Because I didn't really do much of the asking.
Yeah.
It was mostly the other people that did it. I was just there to observe or participate. And the first night we slept in a park. What's the park called? Near Centennial Park, near Bondi. So we found these yoga mats, or these yoga pillows, and like a bunch of cardboard boxes. And I remember walking along this street, and it was probably 8 o'clock at night, and one of them said something like, we should just like make it really like, don't be obvious that we're gonna sleep in the park tonight. And we were literally all carrying like 4 yoga pillows and like massive cardboard boxes, and I had like a blanket hoisted over my shoulder that was dragging behind me. This is like, yeah, okay, no one will know. just keep your head down, like, be innocuous. And that was a very uncomfortable night, sleeping in cardboard. I didn't sleep.
That was in the open?
Yeah, we're under a tree in a dark area. And the second and third night, we ended up going to Bondi and distributing there. And
how did you get to Bondi?
We walked.
Okay. So they walk everywhere during this?
Yeah, pretty much. Unless someone, gives a lift or who knows. Actually, that's an interesting part. I'll get to that. So we go to Bondi and we meet this guy, and what they also do is they do free work. So you can go up to people and be like, for a day we're going to do free work. Is there anything you'd like done? So we ended up cleaning this woman's kitchen. And then we met this guy who was like, come, you can paint my living room. We're like, okay, we'll paint your living room. And so we go, and he ends up letting us stay there for 2 nights. So I was, thank God, God provided. And that was fun. And on the final night, the guy that let us stay at his house, he was like, I'm going to be going to Circular Quay in the morning. So I can pay for you to go on the ferry with me. And so we got there, and this guy bought us tickets, but then the JCs started freaking out because the tickets have microchips in them, and they don't like using microchips because they think it's going to condition us to take the mark of the beast when it comes out. So they don't like using Opal cards. They don't like anything microchipped. So we ended up catching this ferry, and they used the microchip, and it was just like, they were so upset about it. And they could, because they felt like they couldn't not take the tickets once this guy had bought them. So they just, that really like put a shadow on the whole day doing that. And I was like, I've got an Opal card in my bag. So it was really interesting things like that. So on the final night, we slept in Sydney Park, I think it's in Petersham, and there's some really lovely toilets there. So this toilet is like, it's not just like a gross stalls kind of drug place. It's quite spacious. It was very clean. So it recently built, And
It wasn't one of those silver self-cleaning ones, was it?
No,
Oh,
no.
because they're pretty horrible.
That would have been fun.
All the clean products.
They're in there for 15 minutes, start spraying.
So we got our cardboard again, and we found some Hessian sacks this time so that we could have blankets. That was great.
So you're not allowed to bring anything with you? No sleeping bags, nothing?
No. Like, sometimes they can if they're going to have to set the difficulty level at not as hard.
Where do you find Hessian sacks?
It was in a box on a street.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know.
So there's Hessian sacks in a box?
Yeah, near this warehouse of...
Was it coffee roasting bags? They might be from coffee roasting.
Maybe. I think it was near like an art centre there or something. So maybe someone needed those Hessian sacks for
Hessian
something.
sacks, the existence of them just puzzle me.
Who knows?
Yeah.
God provided. A lot of coincidences happened, just saying. So we have these sacks and this cardboard, and everyone lays out for the night. And by this stage, I am so sleep deprived. Like, I've pretty much slept about 3 hours in this whole trip. And I'm like full of adrenaline, because that's what happens when you don't sleep. And so I'm sitting up and I'm like sending these weird messages to my supervisor in the middle of the night, being like, Chris, I don't want to go back. I really love it here. Like, I wish I could stay with the Jesus Group. Like, I love these guys. They're so amazing. Why do we live our lives, serving money and like just sitting there like, and writing field notes, of course. And then at 4 a.m, like in the dead night, someone opens the door, and like we had locked the door, but I think in all checking that the door was locked, we'd actually unlocked it. So this guy opens it, and I look up at him, and he looks at me, and I've never seen a more terrified expression on another human's face. And like, for a moment, like I saw his world, like I saw from his view, and it's terrifying if you open a bathroom and there's 4 people laid out sleeping on cardboard boxes and Hessian sacks. Like, what are you going to think?
Especially in Petersham too. Like,
Yeah.
It's not like it's like a heaps of homeless people in Petersham.
No, it's just a dead, like, empty park. And it's like his mouth actually was a gas, like, open. And he, like, stepped back slowly. And it's like his hand lost feeling. And it rather than letting go of the door, it's kind of like his hand just went limp. And he, like, stepped back and the door just closed. And while the door was closing, we just had locked eye contact. And I was like, oh no, he's going to call the police. Like, what's going to happen? And then one of the JCs woke up. And I was like, there was a guy. There's a guy. And I was freaking out. And then we hear this guy's voice and he's like, I just want to make sure you're okay. And I was like, whoa. Like, in a second, like, yeah, we're fine, thank you. And it was just insane. I've never been more shocked in my life.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was the faith outreach. And so I've had a lot of, I've lost count the amount of times I've spent with them.
You went to farms with them, and there was kids, and then there was
I've stayed
kids
with them.
not with them, and so the goings and comings of the community.
Yeah,
and it keeps changing. Yeah,
yeah.
Even though it's a small group.
Yeah, it's always changing. Recently, they had a rolling reunion, so they had people from different bases come and visit Australia.
Okay.
And so I met a lot of the people from overseas, and that was really wonderful. Like, they're just I love the JCs. Like, people that defend cults or new religious movements, as we prefer, they get called like a cult apologist. And so, like, you can accuse me of that, but pretty much that is what I am. Like, I want to defend them because I think that they aren't dangerous. Like, they aren't doing anything wrong. People join because they want to join, and they're just good people. I think
there is danger with some cults, absolutely. But what I think is refreshing from your approach, and it's very similar to, I guess, Ronson's approach, Louis Theroux's type of approach of going to a community and giving them the stage, allowing them their voices actually to be heard as part of this, rather than going, no, this is what this group represents, and actually allowing them that space to interact and portray their view in the standards that you expect in an academic institution, and then critiquing that, I think is valuable and useful, because it's doing work which early anthropologists tried to do in that regard. It's
Do you think that there's a challenge of walking that line? And I know because we've been talking to you through the whole kind of journey, and there were times when it felt like you were pretty keen on just dropping everything and joining. Do you find it hard to walk that line between kind of immersing yourself and being part of the group, but also remaining as an academic and also still being critical? Do you find that hard?
Yeah, it was extremely hard.
Yeah.
It was also, like, I mean, nothing ever happened in the community that I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is so bad. Like, they've just broken the law or they've done this terrible thing. So I'm like, I don't know what I'd do if I was in that situation. So I was never in a compromised state. But yeah, it's also, it caused like really severe self divisions. So I kind of felt like I was living these two lives that were totally like they couldn't,
unrelated.
Yeah, unrelated. They were different world of logic in each of them. Both of them rejected the other world, and I was like living in between. And so I've got people being like, oh yeah, but you should critique them, like, and I'm like, yeah, you're right, like, this is really problematic what they did, and or like this aspect of their community life. And then I'd go back into the community, and the community would be saying things like, yeah, people that work for money, they're just working for greed, and they're selfish. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, Garrett Gree's terrible, isn't it? And it's actually like I am two different people. But now I don't feel like that anymore, because I don't know, I'm not studying them, but...
Right, yeah. So you feel like you can experience it differently now that you're not trying to also write a kind of academic objective, as far as objective can be, kind of paper.
Yeah, now when I see them, it's just as a friend, like... And I'm still writing some stuff about them, but the actual research part is finished.
Yeah.
It's just putting it into new formats.
McKay is an interesting guy, and being on that joint email correspondence with the three of us a year ago, 2 years ago, when was it? It's ages ago. Do you remember?
Oh.
I emailed him.
Oh.
Well, you emailed. So he had some questions,
yeah,
and he wanted to pass something on to me through you,
right?
Of some discussion,
right?
And then we started debating something theologically, but there was almost a warmth to how he was accepting of you not being a believer, or you just not being saved. But there wasn't a nastiness to it. It was almost this, well, yeah, you're not going to be saved. That's just the way it is.
Well, not necessarily, because the JCs have a thing called sincerity,
and
this is like a kind of inclusivist perspective where they think that you can still be saved, or you can still serve God if you're a different religion, because the teachings of Jesus are manifest in other religions. And so if you're walking in the light that you have, as they call it, which is doing what you think is the rightest thing or the best thing, then that's enough. Like, you're sincere. And so I think maybe that kind of allows my existence as well. Maybe you're sincere.
There has been a little bit of tension though with that, right? I thought there was a time when there was a bit of tension about your role as kind of studier but not joining. I thought there was a time.
Yeah, I think that's always would be a tension with any researcher going in.
Yeah. It's
because you're so interested and you know everything, but you're not joining. And it's like, it's basically saying, I know everything about you, but nah. Like, but it's like, it's just, I think, and that's a really difficult thing to negotiate. And I think now we've got to a point where they absolutely, well, I mean, they always respected me and my position, but I think now they respect me more, or they just
accepted it, man.
Yeah, they've just accepted it, that, you're who you are and we're who we are.
Because it was like, oh, you're going to hang out with us all the time? And like, yeah. And you agree with what we're saying. And you're like, yeah. And it's like, do you want to join? It's like, nah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh.
Yeah, it's a weird thing.
That's funny.
Do you find some similarities with how there is a movement of, how there is a view in that movement of sincerity to the interfaith dialogues and tables that you've been sitting at with those sort of conversations?
Yeah, there's a similar thing. I think each religion has their own philosophy or theology that's used to approach other religions. And I think that's just one version that they have. But the thing with sincerity is that it's an inclusivist approach. So there's three main types. There's exclusivism, inclusivism, and pluralism. Exclusivism is like, we hold the only truth. What we think is correct. Everyone else is wrong. Inclusivism is what we believe is correct, but we think that our beliefs is manifested in other religions. So we've got the perfect version, but other religions have a version. And then pluralism is like, my religion does not hold the total truth. Truth can be found in many religions, and no one holds the definitive truth. So I think the JCs are inclusivist, and more interfaith is more of a language of pluralism.
Right. So aside from Hinduism, is there any other pluralist religions?
Baha'is.
Oh yeah, Baha'is. Yeah.
They've got a very pluralist approach. Just general spiritualities, which do interact in interfaith spaces.
And that's more NRM space.
Yeah, like that's more what you can decide for yourself what you believe, and
they're pretty welcoming to everybody.
Individualized, like it's my truth, it's not necessarily your truth.
So it seems like even a lot of those, like quote unquote inclusivist religions, there's still, when you get down to it, there is still an element of a lot of them that go, well, no, you have to be this or you're not going to be saved.
Do you find them being quite critical of other religions, the Jesus Christians? Or other versions of Christianity, like, they haven't lost their way?
Yeah, they're more critical of other Christianities. They don't talk, like, they don't really go there with other religions. But they talk about Christianity as churchianity. I love their, like, the words that they use. They're great words. And that's institutional Christianity, and that has lost its way. And that serves the institution, it doesn't serve God. And I think that's an idea that's in a lot of Christian churches.
Because they don't have a place of worship. They're just open in the world, and they think that that's what they're called to do.
They don't go to church, they don't have rituals, their idea of going to church or like is their lives 24/7. So they're always on. It's not. So they'll say things like, we aren't just Christians for an hour a week on Sunday. We're all the time. Our whole lives are devoted to God.
So what do they do with communion then? Like in the Bible, it says,
they just have
do
meals.
this in memory of me. Like
Meals
is
together.
that? But is there prayers said over the meal? Like Jesus said we should do this?
No, but sometimes we'll sing God is great, God is good, the rock around the clock prayer song. And that's, they like to pray before meals. But they don't do any communion, they don't do anything. They don't have specific prayers that they say. Like they might have a repertoire of like mealtime prayers, but you don't have to say it. You can have a moment of silence if you want.
What's their preferred Bible? Do they have like their own version? Or?
I think they like King James Bible.
They produce like a lot of literature. Do you want to tell us a little bit about like some of the stuff they produce? Because they're pretty prolific, aren't they?
So they've got a series that Dave McKay wrote as a critique of the Left Behind series by Tim LaFay and I don't know. Timothy Jenkins, I don't know if those are their names. Left Behind series, that whole franchise about people being, the rapture occurring and only certain people are left.
I haven't heard of it.
Or it's like a millennialist apocalyptic story that's like popularized into like a fictional book.
Right. Is it sci-fi?
Could be.
Was it made into a show?
I think so.
I think I might have seen the TV show. It was quite interesting. If it's the same one, I've seen something similar premise.
Yeah, so the whole franchise of that. And so Dave wanted to write a critique of that. So he wrote his own kind of fictional story that's based on the Book of Revelations, of how he kind of conceived it would play out. So there's all these characters that escape, nuclear destruction, and they all find one another, and they form the 12 tribes. And so it's all aligned with scripture, like Book of Revelations. So that's like a really popular one. And then they've got so many books. They've got a book on explaining the Book of Revelations and what it all means. They've got books on... they've got these like compiled books of articles that have been written over the years, and they don't really give those out to distribute. That's for within the community, so you can learn about leadership and like what they think about leadership and what you should do. And this is a funny story. If they listen to this, I think it's a little bit, they don't like people bringing it up, but it's just a really amazing story. So probably, I think maybe it was in the 80s or 90s, they went to the Royal Easter Show here in Sydney, and they dressed up as babies, and they went out to distribute something called the Baby Book. And the whole premise is that we are all children of God, or we should be children towards God. So we should humble ourselves to listen to God and listen to this higher power. And so that's the whole message of the Baby Book. But the problem is that at this time, the children of God was a really big controversy. And so people thought that they were the children of God. And it was this whole mix-up, and they got arrested.
Oh, God.
And they got taken to court, but the judge laughed it out of court. It was like, that's ridiculous. Like, they're just handing out pamphlets at an Easter show. They weren't even inside. So they go back the next year and they do it again. This time, they didn't get laughed out of court. I think they must have gotten fined.
Also got arrested a second time.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And it's just, so they've done a lot of stunts like that over the years. So they haven't always just been doing literature, but...
What do you think it's about them that is so, like, taboo? And what do you think people kind of get their knickers in a knot and call them a cult? Like, where do you think that comes from?
So I think what freaks people out is the aspect of leaving behind your life and joining them.
Yeah.
And so that can be a really drastic transition. Maybe you've got property and you end up selling your property, or you quit a high-powered job. A lot of people that join are young people, so there's this element of, oh, they're young, they don't know what they're doing, they're going to ruin their future if they don't finish their university degree. I have to rescue them, they've been brainwashed. My son/daughter is too naive, they're vulnerable.
They're innocent.
Yeah, and they think that the JCs are these master manipulators that have brainwashed the people. But really what's happening is this person has read the literature, or they've seen a video, because they do a lot of YouTube videos as well.
There's so many.
Yeah.
I was looking for that song this morning and went to their page, and there's like pages and pages just from the last month or 2 months. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Especially if it's just like 100 people around the world doing all this video.
Yeah,
and their graphic design is done. It's actually high class, graphic design. A lot of new religious movements, you can tell because they're using about 20 different types of font on like the literature that they use. It's an easy tell, I think. But these guys actually have like things kind of sorted out. Like it's well designed as much as you can be. But
no, they're brilliant. And they, like the JCs, they're not idle. They are pretty much work 6 days a week on distributing literature or creating videos. If you want to check it out, you can go to the A Voice in the Desert YouTube channel.
Yeah. But there are a lot of people that have left, and when you were doing your research, there's a lot of people that are quite critical, right, and aren't happy and do feel like that they were taken advantage of and things like that, right?
So there's a lot of angry ex-members that have come out and to expose the JCs. Not really sure expose them of what, but I think...
So what's the critiques that they use, aside from, leaving the community? What else?
So each of them got individual stories. A central theme is around Dave McKay being manipulative or a tyrant. There's a lot of that being talked.
He's a big personality.
Yeah, he is a big person. I don't think Dave's a manipulative tyrant, but that's what they say. There's all these stories where they were kicked out of the community and they were left on the street and they didn't have anywhere to go. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty terrible. So I don't know. it's hard with ex-member stories because on the one hand, like, these people may be expressing a very legitimate thing that occurred, but then there is a common theme that ex-members are very, very vocal. Like, angry ex-members are really vocal, but the people that just leave the community and are just like, oh, that was fun, like, I'm going to move on now. You never find them, they never say anything, they just move on with their lives.
So a bit of a biased kind of report on it.
Yeah, so you've got, like, a really loud minority voice.
Okay.
And so, and those ex-member stories were like, yeah, they were terrible people. They're the stories that get taken up by anti-cultists. So anti-cult movement is basically the people trying to regulate or monitor cults. And so they take those up as testimonies. So look, this group is bad because this person said it was. And, you know.
Well, no one's going to write a best-selling book about the best experience they had with these sessions, are they? They're going to write something really negative and it's going to be very, like, inflammatory. Like, all the people that leave Scientology do the same. And I think that there's a lot of, like, you know, when people, even Louis Theroux's documentary on Going Clear, like, they can't even find people that would often go on the record and say anything positive, probably because they're worried that it'll get used against them. And it's probably similar, like, are the Jesus Christians very, like, pro-media? Like, will they do lots of interviews and things like that? Or they're probably a bit scarred from the experience with Fox News. That was horrible.
Yeah. They used to be very, like, they used to do a lot of media stuff, love the media, and because it was their way of getting their message out. Now they don't want any of that because it's too severe, like it's too dangerous for the members because people get very angry, and it's religious persecution. Like, I think because they're a small group and they get called a cult, that we kind of forget that they're a religion, and if that kind of treatment was given to a mainstream religion like a mainstream Christian or Islam, like, we go, that's terrible, you can't do that, you can't you know, drag them through the media saying that they're evil. Like, that's so, but for some reason, if they're a new religious movement, they're small, their beliefs are a little bit different and people aren't used to them, it's all of that religious freedom that's out the window because they're dangerous.
Well, it also probably feels a bit extreme too, and it's the same with anybody that has particularly strong beliefs. People feel like their beliefs are sort of under attack as well. Because, I mean, if you're saying, oh, I'm a true Christian, or this is the only true Christianity, other Christians are going, oh, hang on, I don't need to be Christian to go, I don't need to be, like, poor on the street. So, like, I think people probably feel a bit, like, attacked maybe as well. Might be some of the animosity, but
it is a personal attack on society as it is today. Like, their very existence is on the basis of, as you say, they call other Christians, you know, church. What do they call
Churchianity.
it? Churchianity, yeah.
And we're all, like, in the machine, right? We're making
we're
money.
all in the system.
Yeah, so it's a critique on society in general, and I think that's probably why there is the dangerous component of it. But they're such a small minority, really, they cause no threat at all to society.
But also that sells, doesn't it? That it's sexier for the newspapers and the magazines to write about. The evil cult. And because Australia, like, I mean, we don't have a lot of, I mean, not that they are mostly based in Australia or all around the world.
I think they're all around the world, but they kind of started in Australia.
Yeah. So maybe it's nice because it's sort of like homegrown.
And there's another element, and this is a tricky one because I don't want to, like, devalue anyone's experience, but in the academic literature there's something called the captivity narrative. And this is where an ex-member leaves a group and they think they're terrible, but then there's this need to justify why they were in such a terrible group. And so in order to go through a process where they're able to reinitiate themselves into modern society or mainstream society, is that they have to disconnect themselves from that group. And so they create a kind of narrative where, you know, I was manipulated and, you know, I had to do these things and I didn't choose to do them. And, you know, it was all...
because it's putting the blame in the group, not themselves. It's not like, I made a bad judgment call. It was my bad.
It was
Sorry.
like, I was brainwashed. They kept me. They didn't let me leave. Da-da-da. And
which, I mean, for some people it might have been true.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the tricky thing is abuse does happen, like, in any religion. But there is also this theme where there is a captivity, there is a narrative that that may not be true.
Well, imagine explaining that to you. You've been gone for 10 years, and you go back to your family, and like, what the hell happened? You're not going to say like, "Oh, hey, like I made a wrong call." You're going to say, "I was manipulated. I went without my will. They told me this was going to happen," and they probably twist the version of events to better support what happened. In some cases, probably, right?
Yeah.
I'd be embarrassed, like if I'd been like gone into a group for that long and then came back, because they probably join expecting they're never going to leave, right? Obviously.
Yeah. And it is interesting. It is like an initiation. It's like a ritual in a way of reinitiation, so that I'm no longer that identity. I'm now this identity, and it's a transformation. And it does help them to rejoin society, because it is hard for people to go in these like really niche small groups that have a totally different way of living and then come back out into the world. It's a really tough transition.
Well, especially with all your family and stuff that you leave behind. I mean, and for the families, like that must be pretty horrible. Like, I can see both sides. I can see one that that as an individual they chose to do that, but I mean it is very extreme to cut pretty much, not that they have to, but there's a kind of expectation they cut ties, right, with their friends, their family, and to an extent.
Well, the family and friends, they're not as prioritized. The priority is living out the teachings of Jesus. Yeah. So they still see their family and friends. Like they'll go to their parents' house for Christmas and do stuff like that, and they'll have regular visits.
But is it, if there's sort of this, if a family member's saying don't join or whatever, do they have to kind of blacklist them, that kind of thing? Or, like there's certain people that are dissenting or...
No, they just, they try and sort it out. So they'll, sometimes if they do have a really aggressive family member, the person related to that family member may decide, I don't want to talk to them, like,
right, yeah, fair enough.
Because they're just coming, like, so they try and have a negotiation process, but if that aggression continues, like, there's only so much you can do. It's like, well, I can't keep on sending emails after emails trying to explain, why this is okay and why this is what I want. Like, it's just, so I guess it's just, each individual decides how they want to deal with their family member who's angry.
Where do you see Jesus Christians going to the future? Because like you said, there's probably about 100 members, and is it Dave and Cherry? Yeah. Dave and Cherry, they're getting quite old now, right? Where do you see the kind of Jesus Christians going in the future?
I think so. They've already gone through, they're going through this process of routinization. So routinization.
Okay.
It's like so you've got a group that's formed on charisma, right? And you could say that the JCs were a charismatic group because they were formed around these ideals.
Yeah.
It was an informal leadership structure. And so what happens when the people that were at the center of that charisma and started it and set everything up, when they get to a point where they can't lead anymore, either the community falls apart or they start to routinize. They create positions. They create, instead of this being an informal thing, we're going to create a thing called a leader, and we're going to elect that person in these ways. And we're going to create a constitution of so we're going to have a hub we're going to have an inner circle that's going to deal with these issues, and then you're going to have this position.
So become more organised and institutionalised almost.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think
sounds like a church.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. That'll be really interesting to see how they deal with.
And you feel like they're moving towards that direction at the moment, trying to organise some structures and things like that.
What they're doing.
That's interesting.
But it's really hard to tell because it's getting harder and harder to live without, to live only on cash.
Yeah.
And once we hit cashless society, I don't know what they're going to do. I think they'll have to find some adaptation, but they're very adaptive. So I think they could end up doing anything really.
There'll always be cash.
You reckon?
There'll always be cash.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll just continue as they are.
Yeah, as someone as part of ethnic Australia, as immigrant culture, there will always be cash. Always.
Right.
Absolutely. The marketplaces will not exist on just, FBOS being everywhere. Yeah. I personally, as a business person, I don't like cash.
Yeah, I don't
And I
like it
hate
either.
that. I hate that thing with someone goes, oh yeah, I give you cash, you give me a discount. No, that's a terrible idea. Because I need my staff to go downstairs and bank it, and then just give me FPOS, and then I'm
I've never
lazy.
heard of
I
someone
don't-
asking for a discount by paying
Always.
cash. Really?
Yeah, always
I've never
happens.
ever asked.
Yeah, always. And then, there'll be people from, my thing, the Greeks will come to knowing that I'm Greek, and we'll start this thing and then say, I'll give you cash. And
You
do
give the
this
discount.
Yeah, discount. Yeah. It happens all the time.
That's so funny.
All the time.
I've never think to ask for a discount. Maybe on Gumtree. I think that's a fair way to do
that's
it.
a
Or
bartering
buying
system.
a car.
Yeah.
I'll pay you 2,000 in cash instead of.
No, but
that's
no,
normal.
give me Afterpay, Zip Money,
Yeah.
PayPal, credit card. I don't care, whatever. But cash is annoying.
Yeah.
And then you have to put it in your hand and then put it in their hand, and sometimes you might touch hands.
I used to have
Always happens at the counter, and you're like, I'll get the bag, and then here you go, and then their just hand is limp. There's some money just on their hand. They look at it like, what am I going to do with these 2 20-cent pieces?
I hate when they drop it on the counter though, and then you have to try and pick it up. So you have your hand out, and then they just drop it right next to you.
I have
and
a
you're
couple of kids that do that. One Yu-Gi-Oh pack, please. Yeah, okay. And then you hear them rustling through the wallet, and then big slam of all these coins on the counter, and then that scrape across, and you're like, ugh. So you pick it up and you got to count it separately and put it in the till.
Yeah, that's annoying.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's just terrible.
should we kind of wrap up?
I don't know. Whatever.
I'm getting hungry.
We can stay here. I don't mind.
I want to eat.
Oh, you want some vegan thing?
Okay. So you
and you're vegetarian.
Yeah, I've become vegetarian recently.
Woo.
How's that?
It's pretty easy. It's not that
You
hard.
were never that keen on meat anyway. You were more just whatever.
Yeah.
I was around you.
Huh?
yeah, you would see me going and getting HSC with Ben.
Snack pack.
Pile it on there.
When grilled
It's
chicken.
not very good.
Our mate. Where's he? Yeah, your fork.
Your fork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, "Oh, what ethnicity are you? Oh, you're Australian. No, you can't have this chili.
Yeah, he didn't want to give
This
the
chili will remind me. You'll be reminded of me tomorrow."
Yeah. Yeah, what a legend.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So should we close up?
Sure. What's our closing tune?
So we've got a song here called They Call Us Cult Plus. And this is a great song. It's a rap, but it's basically all about the history of the JCs being called a cult and all of the violence that they've kind of experienced in relation to that. But it's a fun song.
Awesome. And we'll put Jerry's socials, whatever she wants,
how do you
emails.
wanna
How do you
be
want to be
contacted?
I don't want to be contacted.
Don't contact Jack. No, you're on. What are you on? You're only on Facebook, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook.
Do you have an academia page?
Yeah.
Alright, cool.
We'll put your Facebook, and you can always contact Jerry through the Warp Zone Facebook page.
I'll give you my email.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or just tweet us or leave us reviews.
Yeah.
Actually, to contact Jerry, you have to leave a 5-star review on Apple.
Yeah, it's
podcasts.
the only way you'll ever learn anything else.
And then just put the message in there, and then we'll send it on to her.
Yeah. Oh, and also thanks for listening. Jerry's an avid listener. We really appreciate the support.
Yeah, I love this podcast.
Oh, thanks, Jerry.
Thanks.
Yeah.
This specific episode.
That's my favourite one. All the others are shit.
All right.
It's been a step up.
Excellent.
All right.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Enjoy.
Whenever cult leaders try to isolate you socially or to get you to surrender your independence and live communally, they are probably a dangerous sect that you should absolutely run from, no matter how tranquil and loving they may appear to be on the outside.
This is a dangerous groups that we're dealing with now.
They call us a cult plus, brainwashed zombies to insult us. Every day we enrage on these talkers, cause we obey the way Jesus taught us. They call us a cult plus, brainwashed zombies to insult us. Every day we enrage on these talkers, cause we obey the way Jesus taught us. Searching the Bible to find God, want to be a disciple. Comparing Paul to the situations in school, soon realized I was living by the wrong rules. And then one day I came across a book, I started reading it, and the truth I was receiving it. I told my family as I really was believing, but all that they could tell me was these people have a demon. I saw it in the type of thinking that exists, with people in the system and the way they get pissed when you try to work for God. They'd rather have you listen to an iPod. What a waste of time.
They got a goal and that goal is getting money. You go against that and they gon' look at you funny. Like my parents told me, boy, don't you be no dummy. We ain't raised you up to be slimy and slummy. Like, I'm like, I'm here to follow truth. I ain't here to sing the blues, I'm here to preach the good news. Proclaiming Jesus from October through September. So much gospel on my mind, it seems that's all I can remember.
They call us a cold blast, brainwashed zombies to insult us. Every day we enrage all these stalkers, because we obey the way Jesus taught us. They call us a cold blast, brainwashed zombies to insult us. Every day we enrage all these stalkers, because we obey the way Jesus taught us.
How it works, you thirst, so you're looking for the word, trying to find some meaning in a world that's full of hurt. You're immersed in your mission as you search. Then you find a website, hear the truth and start liking what you heard. You wanna travel with us cause you wanna pick up first, to reverse your lifestyle before you're in a hearse. Out of concern, you try to explain the situation to your folks, and the next thing you know your parents go berserk. So they call a cold buster like Rick Ross, who says you cannot trust us and we must be stopped. They say we washed your brain, put our faces on the front page of the papers and start to call us names. Kidnappers, brainwashers, evil, insane, heretics, manipulators and deranged. But hey, it's okay, we really can't complain. Once they labeled us a cult, who's gonna listen anyway?
They call us a cold blast, brainwashed zombies to insult us. Every day we enrage all these stalkers, because we obey the way Jesus taught us. They call us a cold blast, brainwashed zombies to insult us. Every day we enrage all these stalkers, because we obey the way Jesus taught us. They call us a cold blast, brainwashed zombies to insult us. Every day we enrage all these stalkers, because we obey the way Jesus taught us. They call us a cold blast, brainwashed zombies to insult us. Every day we enrage all these stalkers, because we obey the way Jesus taught us.
Yeah, so I got the book Survivors, and the thing that was very attractive to me was the fact that Jesus was saying that people didn't have to work for money. You could just live by faith in God, and He would feed you and clothe you, and you wouldn't have to worry about all these other things. And it just really blew my mind. It kind of blew me away. So I decided that I was going to join up with other Christians that were doing this, Jesus Christians. And it was crazy the way that all my friends and my family, they just reacted in fear. And it was just ludicrous, so I couldn't understand it. But I see now that it's kind of the way the devil wants people to react, react in fear. Whereas God wants us to react in faith, because God didn't give us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a strong mind, like in 2 Timothy 1. And basically, what I found is that we have to move out in faith and reject fear, because fear, the only thing that we have to fear is fear.
They call us a cold blast, brainwashed zombies to insult us. Every day we enrage all these stalkers, because we obey the way Jesus taught us. They call us a cold blast, brainwashed zombies to insult us. Every day we enrage all these stalkers, because we obey the way Jesus taught us.